So, to not waste any more time, we start with the first slide. Well, this is a pyramid of strategic planning we were talking about previously, about strategy, which is the first step in this pyramid of strategic planning. Which was it? Who remembers? Vision, that is the ample, the wide vision. So this is the first thing that we have in the pyramid, towards where we're going in the top view to be that we have Pachamama, world peace, unity of all living creatures, all those wonderful ideas that we have in our dreams are there. But we cannot stop there in the utopic part. We have to continue towards what is the mission of the movement. What is the reason for being? Why are we there? So this would be the following. Since we define which is our vision, we must say, how am I going to do this? What steps must I take? So then, what do you believe goes on? We're establishing what I want to do, then my objectives, but before the objectives, I can have a diagnosis and evaluation. How can I have an objective that I know problems that I'm going to have? What does a doctor say when it's painful? Well, if you are hurting in such a place, take these pills. So you see the symptoms, the diagnosis. He touches your body to see what's wrong with it. So there are different tools of diagnosis that we check. So you evaluate the situation, and from there on, we set forth objectives, and this is what Evelyn mentioned, and we will develop this later on. Goals and smart objectives that are achievable. Then we have strategic steps. Then we have a sequence. What type of large objectives do we have? What are the campaigns for? So we have strategic steps. And then what comes up? Then what comes? What follows? Okay, don't be afraid. Okay? Tactics. So here comes the plan for implementation. All of the sessions, the different parts of my project that are going to be there, and they will be fitting the objectives, the strategic steps, the objectives, the mission, and this leads to my mission, Katiushka. What new strategies do we have to do? Those that correspond to this pyramid. So we should not start from down to up, but let us start seeing what tactics we are using. For example, the sounds that we saw. We have to start from the top. What do we want, and then go downward. And this can help us as a tool to define tactics. Then we have another one, which is the SMART goals, objectives. This is in English, but specific, SMART, specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and say timely. But this research time, they must be within a period of time. Our objectives are 1 year, 1 month, or perhaps it's a 10-year plan, but all of this must be clear when we determine objectives. We will have temporary tables. Now the next one, the next tool is the tactical star. When I want to start an action, I want to make questions, establish questions. Which is my objective? Where we are leading the action to? Where am I going to be working in? What weak points? Are there any fractures of the system where I'm going to have an incident? Who are my allies? Who are my opponents? I must know that, because my actions will address that, to summarize allies and to neutralize opponents, or even bring them over to our cause. Who is the recipient of our message? Where are we addressing, which is my public, my audience? What narrative are we going to use for this conflict? What story do we tell? Geronimo is very good for storytelling, and it's important to know how to tell a story to convey our message. What brings us together? What unites us? What common point do we have? What shared values do we have? We have a message. We want that message to be received, understood, accepted by the majority of people. So which is our common floor? What shares? What do we share? Dreams. Then we have the strategic part, the logic, change, our theory of change, and what we really want. And it ends with what is it that we want to build? What sort of a group do we want to build? So this tactical star leads us to questions before the action. So I ask, how many of these movements before going out to the street, how many of you think, raise your hands, between 3 and 4 of those, it's minimum percentage. And who sets the 8 questions before starting the action? No one. So this is what I say, there is a vacuum here as far as planning. In our movements, we have to make many questions. We have to set forward where we want to go before starting to do things. So I will speak about the spectrum of allies. This is very important. It's very important to carry out this chart, where you are able to identify first who are our allies and say, yes, we have the leaders, but are they active allies? Are they passive allies that are not acting, but they could help us? On the other side, equally, likewise, which are the leaders of the opposition, which are the persons that are not in agreement with us, but are passively doing so, and those that are detractors. So here we must think how, from the point of the opponents, the passive and neutral, and passive allies, we turn them into active. We don't have to move that whole spectrum to your side, but simply from the neutrals, you can activate all those neutral people. That would be much better, but it's also necessary to identify them. So this is why I placed here support, active support, feedback, what we should do to identify and contact, increase cohesion with them, to empower them, create opportunities for support. With each one of those people in that spectrum, there are different mechanisms that can be used so that they can go on your side and cease being in opposition. In neutral, inform, convince, and build the relationship. The next one is the pillars of power. This was presented by Cecile, and I think that this was also in another presentation. But the group that takes this tool, it is important to be able to consider if they are talking about the government that is heading this, under what conditions are they doing this with the government? So I put a few there, but as I previously said, in each country, in each case, it is different. But it's important to carry out the exercise. We have police, military, public servants, media, political parties, syndicates, social organizations, and others. The important part here is when you carry out this exercise, those that are able to do so, take these elements and analyze the parts that constitute it. If I say police and military, there is there. If I only take police and police, or also armed forces, but the armed forces have different ranks, but they don't have the same type of communication or interaction with the generals or with the people of the troops. You will having contact with when you're in the street. And it is important to recognize this. I will tell you later why. Also, military in active or passive service, because many military in passive service serve as informants or infiltrating what a movement is doing. So we must identify what they are doing and why. What persons are in each group? What can they be doing and how can you convince them or to give them legitimacy? The next is the foda, in Spanish for the strings. This is very important so that you can recognize which are your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and also identify weaknesses and where are the threats. In the part of strengths and weaknesses, you must have an internal analysis. And for the opportunities and threats, that is what comes from outside. So in each case, the group that deals with this will take a specific case and see which are our strengths, which are our weaknesses, opportunities and threats. Do you have any questions, please? No? So, if you can get together in groups of 8, and I have some leaflets with some of these tools, and I will give them to each table, to each group, so you can work on this. I'm sorry because my microphone. Yes, the group will have a chart or the pages. There is a Dropbox presentation with everything shared. It's very ready. Check your emails and see if this has been shared.
I had the feeling that the audience would be greater defined. So a type of population, to a delegate, to a secretary, the people that are in the places of power. But when we speak about the cyberspace, it's not that big, because what is the population that you're addressing? And that in the social networks implies using a specific language that we think that can use to the young population. Or yes, that was the next item of the narrative, but the exercise we have this for, and we can work in the next time. But yes, we're thinking that we have to be, I just put examples because it can be different profiles. It can be a senator, a man, we would give him a different message than it would be a woman, but also putting the hashtag. And what would happen if someone close to you disappears? Maybe the sensitivity that a woman has regarding another one is different because it comes from her soul, from her body in the end. So I don't know. Here we have the narrative in item number 5. So we were discussing what we will have to say and where as to have an influence. That's why to think in these two sources, to give evidence to the people and to generate empathy to the ones that are indifferent or are not doing something towards that. Very good. The next group, please. The FODA tool. We are going to present a movement by the indigenous movements whose philosophy is represented in the Sama Kansai, which is the good living. And from there on, we will discover strengths and weaknesses that we have represented with the open hands and opportunities and threats with a fist. Hi. The strengths that we identified was the cohesion of the discourse, the richness of the territory, the responsible consumption, spiritual synergy fed by values, and convictions in the sense of belonging, the connection with nature, ancestral knowledge of those of sustainability, and the opportunities, so the access to resources, natural resources, environmental awareness at global level, a culture of identity, the spaces that could be used, universalization of the struggle, the weaknesses, a little knowledge of the legal and technical framework at national and international level, few access to higher education, little knowledge of the culture and the population and in the threats, state interest, exclusion, impoverishment, concession, consumerism, little access to communities, and imposition of only one model of development, and we saw what is mining. So this is more or less what we were able to see in the little time that we had. But this is like to speak of the indigenous movements, not only of a country, but the whole Latin America and the world. So it's like these things that are present in each one of the movements. Indigenous, Afro-descendant, and maybe environmental movements also. And with this, from this SWOT analysis, we can start some analysis and techniques. Thank you very much.
Somebody has a question or comment? This sentence here, or this word, is the Indians in Ecuador use this, which means good living, and this was adapted to the Constitution in 2008, summa causa, to transmit the knowledge that they have to the communities. This is Quichua or Aymara, both are using the same. It's the same conception. Any other one? Thank you very much. ¿Y dónde está nuestra negrita? And we have a special case of a circuit fence in Ecuador in the parish of Belén. So briefly, this is a community that have gold and silver underneath their soils, and people wanted to exploit that. But it turns out that we were developing a project for reactivating productive elements, but community tourism under the budget of summa causa, Ecuador was able to carry this out in all 2008 and said that we could start this the economy of solidarity common beyond that. So from this project they proposed to organize persons and communities in different ways so that we have community organizations, but with the principle of having an ancestral territory and also a historical tradition that is also cultural in nature. So we worked on this in projects that we were working with for 10 years, and this was 2014, and then we developed this project in view of generating and creating that organization at the end of the work. I want to submit to you our objectives, limitations to be able to modify it because of the group. We tried to see how this could be a function of mining. We were not identifying the problem of mining as initial, but others changed the project. So we were talking about this. So we have other types of threats in the case of Poland. Well, what we have in this sense, this one has different areas, since we have seen different projects. This is something that we carry out initially for baseline, a diagnosis, and here we identified 8 problems. One of them is the existence of outer stakeholders, such as the state and private mining companies, but this is students we thought that we could not do this. So we took other elements of these tourist attraction. Following that, this was very timely because of the baseline, and then we see the possibilities. And here we are trying to satisfy needs. SE is specific. This is specific that we have in this aspect, because we had to also see the matters of our capacity of resources. After that, it's measurable in the sense that we have a series of indicators of final product, so that if we want the organization to work, it must be legalized, and from that point it must have training of the legal nature, regulations, etc. So this is to be able to measure that things are complied with. It's attainable since it's a specific period of 1 year, and in this year we have seen that when we carry out this entire process, we suddenly have stakeholders who are coming to check these things, and they start to distribute leaflets and seeing matters of sensibilization, and in this sense. And people, since they don't know about this, but these things help them stay. The community has accepted doing this, so they were taking advantage of that. So this is sort of a change in our space. So at that time, there arises this problem. What could we do? And later, this is a matter that it is something of a relevant nature, because in our baseline, the people wanted to stay with us. So this was a fundamental element to look at these aspects, to understand the needs of potential people who are joining our vision. If there is no vision from their part of what they're doing, which is correct, and this can be carried out, it is something that can be celebrated. So, finally, this problem is a relevant problem that we have been facing, and up to now, teams are working on this part in Belén. They have been able to not continue with their projects, and there's no space open for mining in that sector. Are there any questions or comments? I think an excellent presentation. Thank you. Thank you. One question. Seeing this that the government also tried to exploit that, they had that intention, and to get gold and river and gold and silver, but they would destroy part of the land. So beyond the money considerations, that this exercise was very important, and we could identify a strategy to be able to carry out the project and to reconnect with the people and the country, that you see the environment, the earth, the land, history, so much so that this project, in matters of protective elements, is going to be successful when you have a full nation insisting that there should be no further exploitation of mining activities. Thank you. Yes, in this sense it was very good because up to now, for 2 years, we were able to, thanks to the negotiations with the Environmental Ministry, to have a series where we have the Order of the Andean Bear, united with Colombia and the Andean countries, and there's sort of respect in that sense. But this is like trying to re-legitimize it because we have a good baseline, because people are united with a vision. Thank you very much. Next group, please. About the pillars of power, and we selected here in this diagram to have a stakeholder, because you have to use the pillars that lead us to maintaining this power, and we see which is a company, a mining company, one of the largest companies of mining in the world, and which the last 2 years, we've had 2 or 3 disasters, environmental disasters. Many people died, others disappeared because they had, in General Mines, which is the largest mining state in Brazil, has a series of dams that are being broken up, and there's no way of stopping those floods, and people are dying in the floods. So there's nothing so there's no prevention in this thing where other places are still there, because the first one that we elected, Ministry of Mines and Energy, because this is a state company, and they have the executive board from the ministry. The second, because they also are the ones who regularize the laws, the public policies, and this is a part of that. So also the governance of Minas Gerais, where all of these disasters are located, and the majority of the companies, the dams that are putting in the population in danger. Third, the workers, without them nothing can be done. So the means of communication are important, because this is something gives an impression that things are happening in this way, but we have all these landslides that have there, and also we have certifiers, because they are the ones that authorize that things can remain like that and just remain as things are. Here we also selected workers to have a starting place to have an analysis of capacities, and we also have the executives and the directors, and in the last line we have the officials and middle management, which are the majority of the people working on these ministries. The process, we had a great deal of movement, and one of the strange things is we wanted to take this example to see about this example, which Janine told us that this was a group effort of trying to investigate further. In the case of a company, we also wanted to establish a company that would be linked to that. So this is a specific and concrete example. Questions, please? Or comments? Thank you. Yes, we're going to do this in 2 languages to be more creative. In the first place, our colleague Larry is going to give an introduction as to the movement that we have selected, which is against corruption in Haiti. And then And then I will explain this chart.
That's okay. I have to introduce you the Quito-Ecuador challenge. El Quito-Ecuador challenge.
Este elemento es un movimiento muy antiguo, establecido por los académicos. Este desafío
With the slogan, "Good Cop Petro-Caribbean."
The Petro-Caribbean movement started in the social networks 2018, and this began when students started this movement.
The Quito-Caribbean Challenge is funding of the cooperation in for development projects and Venezuela aid.
So this was against the great project of international development, and this was the project in Venezuela and Haiti.
This money for personal purpose before carrying out any development project. The government of Haiti used this money.
The government of Haiti was the one that carried out the program, the project, the development project. Then we have replicated this spectrum with the allied leaders. These are the universities and youth who are the ones who started the movement. So the active allies, which are not the persons that began the movement itself, but are very active and are in the movement. And as a matter of fact, there are means of communication, which was sort of an important tool of that movement. Universities were also there, artists, NGOs, national NGOs, and local trade and commerce people selling in the streets. Passive allies are the people that support the movement but do not have an active role. These are the churches and part of the population and some companies. So they're also stakeholders that have a neutral position. So these are not in favor nor against the movement, which are the private companies and international organizations, and I was surprised, and embassies also. And then the passive opponents were government citizenships, and the active opponents were the police, and then the opposing leaders were the government, the political elite, the president, of course, and entrepreneurs.
Yes. No, the Quito-Caribbean Challenge is an anti-corruption campaign started by a nation.
So this is a movement against corruption in Haiti.
Thank you.
Just one question. What is the difference between the neutrals and passive opponents? Yeah, because for me it's kind of, the concept is kind of the same, right?
The question is, what is the difference between neutrals and passive opponents? As I understood, the neutrals, they have the same idea. They have no opinion. They're not against or in favor, but the passive opponents are in favor of the opponent movement in the passive manner. So they do really nothing to support either. I agree with what the government is doing. They do nothing to support this, but in their conscience they have an ideology. Further questions or comments, please? Now, Guillermo is going to present a video and a brief introduction. The intention of this is also the goals are sort of a game of strength, how to apply that strength of force. The intention of this is that we have to see how we build these things so that the actors will be allies, free allies, and not be the opposition. And of course this comes up in the sector of the police, which is an active stakeholder, and there were also a series of Indian survivors, 94, 96 in Chiapas. So there is also something that we try to persuade passively soldiers, and we have this to convince and not to win over. So this is a practice that sort of breaks that game of competence and to be able to win over the people. So this is what comments, please. I thank all of you for the excellent work that has been presented in a very short time, but I feel that each one of you was able to work more directly with all of these tools, and we trust that in each opportunity that you may have, you can use them individually. So it's almost time to go to the buses, so please take your things, and we have to go to Fluxo. Thank you very much.